Welcome, everyone. Our guest today on Little Star Light, his fans compare him to Tom Brady. His peers agree with audiences that this ain't no ordinary Joe. Joe Moravsky, an American Ninja Warrior, fan favorite, record breaker, and beloved weatherman, is joining us. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. So awesome to be here.
You successfully hit the buzzer on stage one of this year's American Ninja Finals, breaking a record of most buzzers ever by an American Ninja Warrior. With your don't quit motto, what else helps you be successful in competing, coaching, family, and career life? That's a lot of stuff, and you do it all well.
Thank you. You know what it is? It's so interesting. Years ago, the host, Matt and Akbar had said that the competitive fires burn bright within Joe Moravsky. That's what he said on TV. And throughout the years, listen to their commentary on TV. It's so interesting. I don't hear it usually when I'm running, but sometimes you run by the host tower and you're like, oh my gosh, I can hear what they're saying. It's kind of distracting. Mm-hmm. But for that specific time, nobody, the fires burn bright. And then also something else that comes to mind is nobody believes in Joe Moravsky more than Joe Moravsky. And that's something that has stuck with me for years. The fires burn bright within me, and nobody believes in me more than myself. And those things, I think, translate across all walks of life, all different career choices, and all different aspects of life. The fires have to burn bright within you no matter what you do. And you have to believe in yourself, no matter what it is, whether it's literally overcoming obstacles, to getting over fears. And those things, I've just been blessed to have the courage, I guess, to kind of believe in that, because some people believe it, but they don't have the courage to take that step. I've just been blessed. I've been blessed with a lot of great things. I always say I'm not worthy because, we're imperfect, all of us. And I just don't feel like I deserve all the gifts God has given me, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And I'm just trying to, spread that positivity. And that's how I live my life.
And it definitely comes through to everyone there, which is so awesome. So I have to ask this because you're being a meteorologist. What is going on with the weather? Any tips of how people can handle the heat, the storms, the general, and what is next in the weather world?
I love it. Well, yeah. So for the listeners and viewers, I went to meteorology school, WestCon here in Connecticut. I studied meteorology or broadcast meteorology. And the track with that was to be on air. And I was working at News 12 Connecticut for quite some time as a freelance. I filled in, and eventually Ninja blew up so much in my life to where they were like, "Hey Joe, can you come in?" I was like, I can't. and after a while they were like, "All right, how about this? Just give us a call if you want some hours." I was like, okay. And years later, here I am, haven't given them a call. So I don't even know if I'm technically employed still, but that's okay. As a freelance, I was always just called in as extra help, and that's always what I wanted. To have my foot in the door, to get some experience being on air. It certainly is scary, I'll tell you that. Being live on TV is a lot different than taping Ninja Warrior. Even though Ninja Warrior, all eyes are on you in the same way, it's just to know that it's being taped, especially in like an interview situation, I can mess up. You know what I mean? I can mess up. When you're live on TV, I'm going to tell you right now, it is not fun. And you kind of just have to keep talking. So, that has helped me, by the way, on the show, to be able to kind of have the camera right in your face. And whether you're performing in the physical aspect of what we do or performing like we're doing right now, this is somewhat of a performance. It's entertainment. It's a lot of things, but it certainly is not easy to a lot of people. But yeah, meteorology, I love it. It's something I grew up with. We all grew up with weather, right? But it's something as a third grader, I believe, is the first time I said something to my teacher. I was like, "Hey, Mrs. Jansen, I want to be a meteorologist." And she was like, "Really? That's so interesting because that's random." Okay. And that's kind of how it all started. But the dream also entailed professional sports. And I didn't know, I was like, well, that's not possible. You don't see Derek Jeter at the time. Derek Jeter was my guy. I loved him and still do, of course, but, he's not playing anymore. But, shortstop of the Yankees. And I was just like, he's not a meteorologist, or Michael Jordan's not playing basketball and forecasting the weather. Although I heard that Michael Jordan is a big weather geek like me. So that's pretty cool. But either way, nobody does that. And so I didn't think it was possible, but, if you want something bad enough, you make it happen. And I somehow did. I turned this meteorology part of my life into kind of a segue, something to help me into Ninja Warrior. And it was pretty cool. My first time ever getting on the show was based on solely, I believe, the fact that I was a meteorologist. They were going to take me on the show and kind of tease me a little bit and be like, look at this weather guy, thinks he could do these obstacles. Come on, go back into the office. But sure enough, I was a real athlete and they had no idea. And it kind of stuck ever since. Joe Moravsky, the weatherman.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely have a few dig deeper questions here, but Karen is excited to share. And for audiences, a brief, very cool story. My Little Star Foundation was running one of our children's cancer programs in LA. You were competing in one of the American Ninja Warrior events. And we went to several different activities. We were going all around LA and we were coming out of the lobby and there you were outside the lobby. It was just part of our group. The other part was still in the lobby and in the elevator. And you had just competed and didn't do so awesome on that particular run. And you were, but you were so great. And this is what I respect so much because as you know, I grew up in, you don't know this part, but I grew up in professional tennis. So I grew up in media and I actually like live better because you can't get misconstrued. You can't get misquoted. You can't get misunderstood. Live, I love it. Like would do it any time. But what we also know, being professional athletes and being on and off camera, there's people that have personalities for on camera and people that have personalities for off camera. And you were so awesome. You weren't on camera. There was no camera shining on you. You just had not one of your greatest moments. And you were so cool to the kids. You laughed with them. You high-fived them. You took pictures. It was so great. And it was not orchestrated. Nobody was there planning this. And that I think is one of the many reasons so many fans love you is because the Joe on camera is the same Joe off camera. You're caring, you're special, you're cool. It's one of the reasons we were so excited to have you on is because, there's so many great people in the world and everyone is doing great things, but you've shown that on and off, you're a caring guy. You're a great guy. You have so many things about you. But anyway, back to the little story.
Thank you.
So Karen is a little like you. She loves helping kids get through obstacles. She had childhood cancer and with only a 2% chance of survival. And as a Little Star alumni, she helps other kids with cancer. So I'm super excited for Karen now to come in. She was in that group there watching you splash and jump and leap and all of that.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Hey, Karen.
So I'm going to be asking you some fun questions because we need to know more about you. So has it been hard being an American Ninja Warrior and a weatherman at the same time?
Well, kind of how I talked about it earlier, to live both lives is difficult. And so, as Ninja grew, I kind of fell away from the meteorology gig, which is fine. I'm 34 years old right now. I'm not getting younger. And I could always fall back, I suppose, on meteorology, although that's a funny thing to fall back on. But, to be able to do both, yeah, it's challenging. It's almost, I have 3 kids. Doing anything with 3 kids is challenging. It's similar, like when you split yourself so many different ways, it becomes difficult. And sacrifices have to be made. And, with Ninja, I decided to sacrifice meteorology and that's fine. It's my decision. The harder choices are when I have to sacrifice family time to train or family time to compete. Those are big things. Like today, for example, my youngest, we brought him to school. First day of preschool today. My other 2 who are sitting in the kitchen right now having some lunch, they go to school on Wednesday. And it's tough because during the school year, my wife's a teacher. I work from like 1 o'clock in the afternoon to like 9:30 at night, Monday through Friday pretty much. And, at the gym, I work at Stamford Ninja Academy. I'm the manager there. and soon to be franchise partner, which is pretty cool. But either way, it's a sacrifice. Monday through Friday, I'm not seeing my kids. And so what does it take? I mean, it takes sacrifice. You guys are no stranger to sacrifice, with things you have to do to survive, right? Surviving cancer and the things you have to do. Like, for example, I hear of how sugar is such a bad thing for your body. And in order to have a better chance at just defeating a cancer or not even getting cancer, hopefully for some people like me, I love sugar. And it's got to be a sacrifice to stop eating sugar, because that's the last thing I need is, I've met too many people, that have stories of either childhood cancer or worse. It's hard, and to kind of falling back, on what we were talking about before with, meeting kids and everything. I've met so many people on my career of Ninja Warrior, and it's those stories that you were just telling me about, like me high-fiving them and I made their day and they were so happy. It's those reasons for me that I come back to Ninja. Like it's so hard for me to find a reason to get up after a failure, especially a tough one that you worked harder than ever before and sacrificed more than you've ever sacrificed before. But when you meet these kids that are so into what you do and believe in you, like on social media, I have so many people saying, Joe, this is your year. You can do it. I believe it. And it's so cool because I have to be reminded that too. I've been doing this over a decade and I've been so close to winning. So it's really tough. But sacrifice is the big thing. You have to figure out what means most to you and if it's possible to split yourself multiple ways. But that's kind of how I've had to move forward with meteorology, right? I had to kind of sacrifice it and put it to the side. So unfortunately not doing it, but it is mix of sun and clouds outside, temperatures at about 80. No, I'm just kidding.
Still got it. You still got it.
I'll prepare next time. I'll prepare more next time.
Right?
Yeah.
You need your screen.
Yeah, no. Behind me here we have Hurricane Irene. What's the hurricane coming up? See, there's a hurricane off the coast of Florida right now. I know there is, or at least will be. So I'm not that far out of the meteorology world. But
we're recording this on a Monday, and Wednesday it's supposed to hit in Florida, close to where I'm at in Santa Rosa Beach. So,
oh geez, okay.
Yeah, so I'll be calling you. No, I won't. No, I won't.
You probably,
I won't. Okay, Karen, I know you have more to go.
Okay, so Joe, as a weatherman, what's your favorite weather and season?
Interesting. Yeah, well, I got into meteorology because there are so many different parts of it I loved. I remember, I think the blizzard of 93. I was 4 years old. I remember this. The snow was literally falling off my parents' house to the point where not only was the snow falling off the house, it was touching the ground with the snow from the ground. Like it was like this, it looked like, I don't even know how to explain it. It looked like a wave. And it was the coolest thing to be standing in snow that was taller than me. It was like almost 4 feet of snow. It was like 3 feet and change of snow. And I'm some 3.5 foot kid. I remember like the snow being here. And it was like, I'm running through like a maze. It was so cool. And so like the blizzard of 93, Hurricane Katrina, as devastating as it was, it was something that I was in college for. And I remember 10 days out. Oh, no, not Hurricane Katrina. Oh, yeah, no, it was Katrina. And then we had Sandy, Storm Sandy. But it wasn't Katrina I'm thinking of. It was Sandy. It was 10 days out, Hurricane Sandy. And Hurricane Sandy was supposed to be coming up the East Coast, and it was just going to go out to sea. But one computer model had it kind of take a 90-degree turn and come back. And we very rarely see storms do that because, one, it's fighting the jet stream, and two, it's just not normal or natural for hurricanes to go against the jet stream unless something is forcing it that way. And we had a high-pressure system over like the Greenland area that was kind of blocking it, so it kind of slowed it down. And then there was another low-pressure system off to the west, the north and west. And so what ended up happening was Sandy came up the coast, and then it interacted with the other low pressure system. And so what happens is, think about two planets or two objects in space. If they get close enough together, they kind of pull towards each other. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, It's called here, I know, in the atmosphere, the Fujiwara effect, I guess after Dr. Fujiwara is my guess, who discovered the phenomenon. And so these low pressure systems interacted, it pulled Sandy towards us, and we had this historic superstorm where, I think West Virginia ended up seeing multiple feet of snow from a hurricane, which is think about that for a second. A hurricane with a warm core coming from the tropics dumped over 3 feet of snow in some parts of West Virginia. Incredible. And then not only that, but it destroyed parts of Long Island and New York City and Connecticut coastline. It was one of the most incredible and awful things. And so it's things like that. I know it's a long answer, but blizzards, hurricanes, and all the cool things like there was one I learned a couple of years ago. I can't remember the name, but I'm just going to say what makes kind of sense. It was like a cryoquake, I'll call it. It wasn't that, but essentially it's when it rains so much that the ground becomes inundated with water. And what happens is you get a flash freeze right after it. So the temperatures drop, they plummet, and all that water freezes and starts to expand. But because it's in the ground, it causes the ground to expand. You actually get seismic type activity. It's called, I call it a cryoquake. It's not, I don't think it's called that, but essentially it's the ground expanding and it causes this seismic type phenomenon. And I remember being at my old house. This was a couple of years ago. I didn't even know anything about it. I had already gone through college. I thought I knew everything. Yeah, right. And all of a sudden I heard the ground just pop. It was like, and I was like, what? And it was so loud. The house shook. And I was like, what the heck was that? And sure enough, some of my local meteorologists are on Twitter and they're like, cryos, quake, or whatever. Once again, don't know the name of it, but we'll have to look it up after. But all those little things, so exciting. You can hear it. You can hear the excitement in my voice. And that's why I've always loved it. And that's why, just like Ninja, it doesn't feel like a job, right? Because you love it so much. You love talking about it. And even 10 years later, here I am doing a podcast talking about everything I've talked about for years and years because I still love it,
Okay. So you like hurricanes and
all
superstorms?
weather. The only thing I don't like, that would have been a better question, is what don't you like about the weather? The one thing I don't like is dripping humidity. And I know you guys are familiar if you're all from Florida. Yeah.
Adriana was just in the storm in California where they had the rain and the earthquake at the same time.
Crazy.
So yeah. All right, Karen, you're still going.
Okay. So Joe, if you could give advice to your younger self, what would your advice be?
It depends. What am I trying to better myself, my past self, compared to me now? Am I trying to be a better ninja or am I trying to be a better person? And so I think for me, I would just remind myself that mistakes happen. We all make mistakes. And I think I would just remind myself that, you're human. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to do the right thing. And that probably would resound better with me. I think Ninja, I've had this question asked me before and I went a different route with it. And I said, because there's nothing greater than confidence. I really believe that. I've gotten to where I am in the ninja world because of confidence. It's not because I'm better. There are ninjas that are better than me. It's because of confidence. I went into my first season believing I could win just because I saw what the obstacles were on TV. They didn't look too hard. I'm like, why are these people falling? I know it just sounds bad, but why are they falling? And sure enough, I got on the show. I got through the first 2 rounds, had this amazing boost of confidence because of those 2 buzzers I hit in the very first 2 tries. Got to Vegas, all my confidence tanked because the guys that were there are all like this. They're 8 inches taller, the Powers of Tower, I think, were out there at the time. I don't think they're competing anymore, but they're 2 friends out of, I don't know where they live, but they were these
Midwest,
2 6 foot, 2 6 foot something guys. And I'm like, I can't match up with them. But as the competition moved on, I realized these big guys are the ones that are falling. They're heavier. Maybe they don't have the coordination because they're bigger frames. I don't know. So I started to believe again. And sure enough, I hit a buzzer in Vegas 2 more times and get to stage 3, which at the time was something only the greatest of the great ever get to. And I couldn't believe it. As a rookie, I did it. And
that was in 2013, right?
Yeah. And I just all of a sudden had this boost of confidence. And confidence goes a long way. And I rode that confidence wave like I did in basketball in high school. I was a streak shooter. Once I got hot, I stayed hot. And I feel like ever since I started Ninja, I've been hot. Sure, I get cool for like a season because of something or other. So I also, like I said, I answered this question a couple of years ago to somebody else when they asked me, and they said the same thing. And I said, I would tell myself I won twice. Just because it would take stress off of me. Like, oh, I'm going to win twice. Great. Maybe this is the year. Let's do it. And I would keep going back, and I would be like, well, it's going to happen eventually. So don't even worry. Let's do it. Like, if it doesn't happen, we got next year. But, so I would almost trick myself into, at least at this point, maybe I have one. Maybe we'll see. It's still airing.
Now for my last question, I'm going to change it a little bit. I had a different one, but
sure.
Hearing you talk kind of made me wonder, what is your favorite and least favorite obstacle course in Ninja Warrior?
I'll give you the obstacle. How about that? A singular obstacle. My favorite obstacle, and this is a new one for me, like a new favorite. It's not something it's not been my favorite forever, but you'll see why. It's the mega wall. So
you did that. You got that in 2 years ago, 2020, wasn't it?
Yes,
2020. Oh my God. You got it.
3 years in a row. I failed it 2 years. And then the next 3 seasons I got it. So what it is, it's the final obstacle within our qualifying course. And it's an 18-foot wall. And if you get up it in one try, you win $10,000. That's why it's my favorite obstacle. It's the only obstacle that pays you if you beat it. I love that. It's a good quick 10K if you can get it. An obstacle I think I would be most scared of, honestly, ironically, is called the lightning bolts. I was supposed to have it in Philadelphia for like my 8th or 9th season, whatever it was. I think it was season 9, because what happened was we got rained out and I ended up getting pushed, and I had to film in Minneapolis instead, because there was like 12 ninjas that didn't run that night because of the rain, and the rain was going to continue for like 3 days. So production said, we're not going to have it. Joe and the others, you're going to fly to Minneapolis. We'll fly you there. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, my family's here right now. I got my cousins and aunt and uncle who've never seen the show, and they're coming out finally to watch this for the first time, 6 years in, of course, or 5 years. So I was like, fine, I have no choice. It's pouring rain. So we moved me to Minneapolis. But the obstacle was called the lightning bolts, and I swear it was made for me because it was lightning themed. But it was essentially like, it looked like W's. And there was 2 of them. There was one here and one over here. And there was a bar that went in between the first part of the W. So it was down here, coming towards me or towards you, whatever direction you want to envision this. And there was a pivot point where my thumbs were. So the W's did this. And what you had to do was jump the bar to this W and tip it over. So imagine, for anyone listening at home, imagine you're on the W on one leg. Imagine the W is tilted like 45 degrees and you're on one of those arms of the W. Then you want to jump the bar to the other side, and the whole thing turns 45 degrees the other way. That obstacle, for whatever reason, it scares me, first of all, because you have a flying free bar and there's like 4 moves and there's no, safety harness. It's just you in the bar, and you got to make sure you do it right. But I think the big reason why I never really liked it is a gym locally to us here in Connecticut built a recreation of it, and I failed it every time. I failed it like 4 times in a row. Now I come to find out later that the bearing, or the thing in between that keeps it from, going back and forth, was really loose. And he told me that later, but like, come on, like I've lost all confidence on this obstacle now. But I think that would be probably the number one obstacle I don't want to ever see again.
Awesome.
Good reason.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah.
No. Good reason. Well, next up is Adriana. And Adriana grew up a bit like me, training for tennis. She's fast on a tennis court and a motorcycle track, and teaches art to children who struggle from blindness, cancer, being orphaned, and other tough challenges. Adriana and I often laugh at who would splash on what obstacle and how hard American Ninja courses are. It's like what you said, Joe. At first, when you said, I can do that, and you can. But there's many of us who see it and really can't, okay? And I'm definitely one of those. I would probably go on the first, like splash on the first part, unless it was like excitement and enthusiasm, and then I might get to the second and then totally would splash. But anyway, here's Adriana.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
It is wonderful to be on the podcast with you. Thank you for being with us.
Same. Thank you.
This is so exciting because Andrea already mentioned we met you at one of the one of the tapings with the kids with cancer and the families, and we all loved it. It was, and especially, I mean, for me, it was, I remember this couple of, well, I don't remember all of it, but the parts that were surprising to me were when you guys were going over the rules and regulations before the taping even started, and I was really surprised how many rules there are. Like if you jump a certain way, if you hold on to the obstacle a certain way, you get disqualified.
It depends. Yeah. In some obstacles, on some obstacles on the show, yeah, they have silly rules, at least what the ninjas would call silly rules. Like they might make you get to the last part of the obstacle before trying to dismount and land on the platform. So there are some silly rules.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, it just showed how challenging it all is. It just seems, you guys jump in there and just go and race and that's it. But no, there's a lot more to it always. And then another part of it was really, really cute with the kids when you guys started to compete. The cameras were filming all of us, and the kids in the stands they told us, like, do not look into the camera if you want to be on.
I know.
And of course, each time the camera came on us, we just automatically looked right into it.
We're
cheering. But it was so much fun. We really, really loved it. And I could tell, I mean, I watch it on the TV that it's such a tough competition on mentally, physically, on different levels. So it was really wonderful.
Especially nowadays, going back to what you guys were just talking about, how like you think maybe you can go out and do a few obstacles. Yeah. Let's say like a couple of years ago, definitely. Now, especially with the changes from the previous seasons to now, getting through the first obstacle is now somewhat challenging. You need to be able to jump on a trampoline. You got to be able to climb a pole fast. You got to catch a pole while you're flying through the air before you can even climb it. Little things, not just an agility-based jumping obstacle anymore. It's literally a full body obstacle for obstacle 1. And obstacle 2 is now a very technical obstacle. So nowadays you need some sort of training, unless you're an athlete, like a very good athlete. I'm not talking just like a, good with your feet. Like you have to have really good body control and awareness. And you need to know what a lâcher is, which is when you're hanging from something and you swing and jump off it. If you don't know how to lâcher, you are done on obstacle 2. I'll tell you, that is what obstacle 2 is now. Yep.
Okay, so you're a World Ninjas veteran. I mean, obviously, it's been many seasons. Why did you keep coming back to compete on the show season after season? And what significance the Ninja Warrior competition holds for you? I mean, you even postponed your wedding due date to the show's national final taping.
I know. Well, I've said it. I said it in this most recent post. I actually just made a post on social media saying that I wouldn't still do this if I didn't believe I could win. So that's, I think, the biggest reason right now, among all the reasons I have, it's the biggest reason I'm back. I believe I can win. I think about Michael Jordan. I think about Tom Brady. I think about the greats of their respective sports. And, some of them step away when they're in their peak. I feel like, like Jordan wins a championship or Tom Brady wins a championship and they think about retiring at the top. And I get that, right? I get how you might want to walk away before people start to see the decline of your greatness, if you will, right? But I haven't felt the decline. I'm 34 years old. And in the eyes of Ninja, yeah, it sounds old, I suppose, because there's 15-year-olds competing. But 34 is not old in the eyes of sports. We had LeBron is how old right now? He's at least 38, right? Isn't he? He's in his 40s, isn't he? Tom Brady was in his 40s. Now, granted, they're not the running back. Brady's not the running back having to be extremely physically fit. He's just got a really good arm and really good awareness and everything.
LeBron's 38.
He is, okay. I was going to say he's got to be late 30s, early 40s, but I didn't think he was 40 yet.
Young.
Still, 38. I got plenty of years left. The problem is not physically for me the issue. It's the sacrifice, like we were talking about before. Do I really want to put more time in to continue to get better? And that's the question I ask myself every offseason. It's another question I ask myself during this off season, even though it's airing right now, whether I won or I lost, what do I want to do? Do I want to come back? If I win this season or season 16, because there were back-to-back seasons that we filmed this year, due to, I think, a few factors, but there's going to be 2 seasons airing. One is finishing up now, and the next one will probably be in the winter, which will be cool. I'm hoping. But the question is, whether I won or lost, do I want to come back? And I have all the reasons that I want to come back. I have all the positive, yes, you want to come back answers. But what is the downside of that? Well, I work later hours. I'm going to train harder at the gym. I'm going to travel more for competitions. So this is all family time I miss. And thankfully, I have, I suppose, the flexibility enough to be able to do it still. So if I didn't have a job in a gym, I tell you right now, there's no way I would be as good as I am, because that is the only way at my age you have any shot at competing with these teenagers and all the other competitors, because you need to be in the gym every week. So I think that's why I keep getting back up. I believe I can win. I keep getting better. Ninja's a game of inches. You miss by 1 inch and your season can be over. And you're going to see it on the next few episodes with really stage 2 of the Vegas finals. I don't know if that starts tonight or Monday night. We're talking about this here on Monday here. It's going to air on Wednesday. So either way, it's either going to be happening tonight, Monday, or a week from today, or 5 days from Wednesday. Stage 2 will start, and stage 2 is going to be head-to-head racing. And when you're head-to-head racing and you make one mistake in a very technical obstacle, the season's over. We've seen it with me in the past. I have fallen on obstacles that just are off by an inch, and it's the most frustrating. But I have learned that, and I believe this through and through, that one obstacle or one mistake or one bad run does not define who you are as an athlete. One match in tennis does not define who you are, does not define your career. Same thing goes with injury, although sometimes injury can, control your life, unfortunately. But fortunately for me, I haven't had that happen yet. And hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Thank you for sharing. I had this question for you, but it was about your. I know your passion for meteorology started in 3rd grade. You knew what you wanted to do at that young age, and many people don't know. Like, I'm 37, I still search, in a sense. So, and you answered it. I wanted to ask what fueled this passion at such a young age, and you just loved the weather, or what was so fascinating about it?
So we talking weather specifically?
No, just not weather specifically, but I guess you wanted to be a meteorologist, right? So it comes in a sort of on a larger scale, not just the weather.
So as a kid, I think what got me so interested was the fact that there were so many powerful aspects to weather. I loved it. I tried tornado chasing when I was in high school and college. That's tough in the Northeast because there's so many hills, mountains.
That's why you're a good ninja warrior. It's the tornado chasing.
I wasn't running to the woods. I was driving a car, but still. Although that would have made me pretty good swinging from the trees, like the tornado's coming, quick. But that was something I always loved. But it's really just the power. The power of nature was so incredible and so exciting. And I thought, hey, what a great job to have, not because I could be wrong all the time and still keep a job. I've heard that plenty of times. It's because weather is always changing. So I would go into work, and one day it might be, all right, guys, Monday is going to be sunny, high in the 80s. Tuesday looks about the same. The rest of the week, temperature's going to be in the 70s to low 80s with low humidity. It's going to be beautiful. Like some weeks they could be boring, but some weeks, hey folks, well, we got a big storm barreling up the coast right now. We're going to have to batten down the hatches and so it can be very exciting.
Because it's ever changing.
Your thunderstorm warnings are on, in effect until 9 p.m. tonight. So, keep an eye on the news and make sure, so there are plenty of exciting things. And that's kind of how I got into the weather. As a kid, I remember my mom pointing out the fluffy cumulus clouds one day, and she was like, "Look at that! It looks like a big bear or a big dragon." And I was like, "Wow, look at the clouds! They're so cool." And that's kind of how I first noticed it, because I was young when she pointed out the clouds. But now here I am pointing out to my kids, which I think is still funny.
That's wonderful.
But that's kind of how it all started.
Mm-hmm.
And, meteorology, Ninja kind of started with me just watching TV. I was watching American Ninja Warrior. It was actually just Sasuke, or I don't remember what it was called back on season 1, 2, and 3. But I remember seeing it on TV, and I was like, "Why are they falling?" Like, sorry, but it doesn't look that hard. How are they messing up a rope swing and landing on a platform? That looks just easy to me. Like I would do that over spikes. Like I don't know. So
I was wondering about that too. What sparked your interest towards being a ninja?
Yeah.
So
perfect. So, I decided I need to try this out. And I remember before I even had that opportunity, and this is a story I tell everywhere, and it's so funny. I was in the living room of my parents' house, and what ended up happening was, it was on TV. It was on G4. It was a small network on television, cable television. And it was a lot of the Americans, some of the old school ninjas, Paul Casimir, Travis Rosen, Drew. There was Brent Stephenson, David Campbell, and I can go on and on. There was a bunch of James McGrath, a bunch of ninjas that had been doing ninja for, I guess, since its inception here in America, but they had watched in Japan, which is the Japanese version of the show, Sasuke. And what ended up happening was, I saw it on TV. My mom walked by in the living room. I think I was in high school at the time. And I was like, "Mom, check out this show." And she walks by casually and she looks back. She's like, "Oh, that looks cool." She didn't really care. But I was like, "It looks so cool. Like, come on. I think I can do that." And she turns back and looks at the TV and she goes, and as she's walking away, she's like, "Sure, honey." And I was like, "Mom," and I didn't say anything, but I was like, "Was that sarcasm?" Or did
she challenge you?
Exactly. She knew. And I was like, "You gotta be kidding me." I was like, "I'll get on that course one day." And, years later, I ended up graduating college. I had a degree in meteorology. I actually switched majors from meteorology, not a lot of people know this, to secondary education, because I wanted to keep my foot in the door of sports. And I thought, you know what? High school teacher, I'll go science or math, because I loved those. I wasn't very good at them, but I loved them. And I wanted to be a coach. I really wanted to be a coach and keep my foot in the door of sports, because I had a feeling college, this is it. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I gave up baseball in college to focus on meteorology. Mm-hmm. So I had a chance to be on the team and play Division III baseball. But I quit before the tryouts were even over, because I realized, you know what? My heart's not in baseball. Like, it is, but for the first time in my life, I started thinking ahead instead of thinking, not thinking.
That's so great.
And I thought, how am I going to make a career out of baseball from Division III baseball? Like, if it's the D1 school and I had a chance to go pro, like maybe, but I was like, I think it's time to give up the dream. And so I quit baseball and focused on my career, meteorology. And, the rest is history. I ended up getting on the show, but I took a year where I was going to be secondary education, mathematics, and science. And so it slowed my graduation date by half a semester. So I ended up graduating in December of 2012. And that summer, going into the last semester of college, I remember it was summertime. I just saw this on Facebook, which is so funny. It was on my personal Facebook, and it was like, "Going to Vasi's birthday party, so excited." And it was like dated August 22nd, 2012. And I messaged him. I was like, "Vasi, this," and Vasi was a friend of mine, a longtime friend, but he was originally a boss of mine at a gymnastics gym. And I was like, "Vasi, this is where it all started. Like, this is where I met your student who was on American Ninja Warrior. And I remember talking with him all night at your birthday party about Ninja." And he was like, "Oh, you get on the show by applying. You have to submit a video." And I was like, "All right, well, let me know when the tryout's happening." And he was like, "All right." And sure enough, that was August. So I trained. I was like, good, it's perfect timing. I'm going to train. I'm going to finish college in December, and then we film in March. I was like, I'll be ready. So I trained all summer. Actually, it was not even all summer at this point. It was September, October, November, December, January, February, March. It was just over 7 months of training. And I tried to focus on specifics of ninja. What do I need to do? So I started doing a lot of pull-ups, started doing a lot of hanging. I did some rock climbing, and then I was just doing my normal athletics. But I really just tried to focus on, and I even tried some like swinging and lashang, but at the time there wasn't a lot of lashang going on in ninja. And I just remember, all of that all happening. And sure enough, March rolls around and I ended up getting on the show. And it's kind of crazy how one decision can really change everything. One choice, one decision, for good or bad, can change everything. I would have never got where I am today, or maybe there would have been destined. I would have been destined to. Who knows? If you believe in destiny, right? Or maybe there is another destiny and another route. I don't know. Maybe, but maybe I was destined to be where I am. I believe it. And if I had never worked at that gym, not only did I work with my wife, who I met in college, she worked at the gym, but I would have never met the guy who was on Ninja. I would have never had that opportunity. I would have, it's just like one little thing can change everything. I think that's so cool.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing. Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay. So to close us out, and you touched on this a little bit. I've been a huge fan of American Ninja Warrior since the beginning. And besides that acrobatic athleticism, I mean, I was 2 in the world in professional tennis. Adriana was Division I tennis, pro tennis.
Incredible.
We still couldn't touch what you guys do. I mean, what all of you do, the male athletes, the female athletes.
So let's just make sure
I appreciate that. But
I've tried too. You haven't tried my way. I've tried tennis. I'm terrible. Although my sister, she played Division III tennis. So
that's good.
We got some tennis blood in the family.
Competition.
That's impressive. But it's to see the male athletes and the female athletes there. It's not just, and now it's switched a little because you're competing against each other. But there's something that, and I think this is why America and the world loves Ninja. There's a community, and there's compassion, and there's love, and there's friendships. And that's what we see. Like, we were able to take our group behind the scenes and saw some of the things that were happening. But when people see the crowds on TV and see you each cheering for each other, it's genuine. It's real. I mean, you guys are roommates and friends, and sometimes they marry, someone that they met on the show that's a competing athlete. And coming from a professional individual sport, that's such a different environment. Like when I grew up, and so to see that, it is so wonderful. It's like it inspires you to find a community and be part of a community. And
that's true.
It's like to watch all of you and to see how it's prospered. And I didn't have a chance because you kept talking. You were mentioning about how your gym is franchising, which is incredible. Congratulations. Well deserved. And so that was part of my last question, is to talk about the community of American Ninja Warrior. How can others kind of emulate that, and whether their sport or their community or their company? And then just to let everybody know out there in the audiences, if you want to do what Joe does, if you want to try to soar, like when I try to go soar, I make sure that God's called me to soar, like somewhere, to leap or take a jump. Like, hey, is this what I'm called to do? So if you do want to do it, there's gyms like Joe's. There's gyms around the country that a lot of American Ninja Warriors are now coaching. So find a great coach. Find someone that can help you along. Of course, you can try in your backyard, but I'm kind of protective, being that foundation person with kids, working with kids for 38 years. I want to make sure everyone gets the right coach and finds the right gym. But can you share a little bit about, because I've seen you on TV and I've seen you separate privately with the kids that you help. You do, and even on this podcast, you didn't know us. You said yes and you came on board, but none of us knew you personally besides that visit. And your personality and your love for people and community, and for people to better themselves. And you're coaching now. We've seen some of the athletes now that you're coaching, and they adore you, and rightly so. You're this role model that, if they're going to start cloning Joe, and get him out there. So can you just share lastly about that? Because you have been such a blessing. I mean, American Ninja Warrior's done great for you, but you've also done great to show this is who we are. These are who all these people are as individuals, and it's a leadership role that all of you didn't know what you were signing up for, but you've led so incredibly well. And I, as a fan, am grateful, and we all are. And, in closing, I definitely want to say thank you for that to all of you, and to you especially.
Well, thank you. To kind of talk about what you said, I would say the biggest thing, maybe like you said, that maybe the biggest difference is individual versus, you have a camaraderie, you have a group. And I think the biggest difference maybe is the genuine, when you're very rarely rooting against somebody in Ninja. When you go up against somebody in tennis, you're rooting against them. Like, you want to win. It's you versus them. In Ninja, yeah, it's a little bit different this year. We have some head-to-head formats, so of course you want to beat them. But at the same time, you can win and still kind of feel victorious, right? You can beat the course. Yeah, sure, you might have been beat by the guy next to you or the girl next to you, but you still beat the course. You came out, you did what you set your mind to do. Like, that's a huge accomplishment. A lot of people don't have the endurance or the strength to come out and actually beat a lot of these courses. So their goal is to get as deep into the competition as they can, deep into these obstacles as you can. But the sportsmanship is probably the biggest thing. Sportsmanship on a tennis court is, of course, you're going to say great game. You did great out there, and that's it. You walk away. Maybe. I'm not a tennis pro, but you're mad. You're upset. You're like, man, I just lost somebody I probably shouldn't have lost to, or maybe they beat me and they deserved it. Who knows? With Ninja, it's kind of different because they are your friends, right? You train together, you work out together, and yeah, there's a percent of you that, yeah, you want to beat them, of course, but it doesn't really matter until the very last stage of the Vegas finals, where you're climbing that rope for $1 million, and it's you versus the rope, which you could beat, hopefully, and the few other people that might be with you. Then you have, some room to root against them if you want, or start picking your favorites to win it all. But sportsmanship is huge, and very rarely do I show poor sportsmanship. It has happened. And they're very rare cases, but it's never sportsmanship against other people. It's sportsmanship against myself or the course, right? Where for example, the mega wall we were talking about, the one year I should have got it, but I didn't. I got to the top of the smaller wall, hit the buzzer, and I sat down in frustration. And I took my shoes off and jokingly chucked them at the bigger wall. And everyone on social media he's having a temper tantrum. I was like, that was so far from a temper tantrum, but yeah, it was a little childish, sure. But hey, I'm playing on obstacles as a career. It's a playground. So hey, if I have childish outbursts, it is what it is. It's the secret to staying young is play on obstacles. But no excuses. I've had moments, or the year I got sick, I had food poisoning in Vegas during my run. I'm sick and I couldn't warm up. I couldn't even think of the course. It was just me running to the bathroom, trying to come out and get ready, but realizing I had to go back to the bathroom. It was for 2 hours straight. And then I had to go straight from the bathroom to the starting platform. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I feel so sick right now. I can't run. I can't jump. I couldn't do any of that in the warm-up area. None of it. And I tried. I was like, I need to warm up. I was like, you know what? I can't do it. So I did literally the entire course cold, not warmed up, didn't plan out anything. I was going on pure experience and hoping that I can just figure it out on the fly. And I got to the last obstacle and I ended up just mistiming something because I didn't have the right preparation. And so it was I had to hit a buzzer or a button within the course, which started something on a track, and I had to run against the thing or parallel to the thing and then wait for it. And I had to jump off a trampoline and try to catch it as it went by. And I just totally mistimed it because I didn't have the right preparation. So when I fell in the water, I came out. Thankfully, I had a safety pass that year that I can use and actually retry the course, which, by the way, was just as bad because it was 20 minutes later. I didn't even have a second pair of shorts or underwear. So I was running underwear and shorts. I had a new shirt and I had a new pair of shoes and socks, thankfully, but I'm wearing wet pants. But I ended up beating it the second time. Point is, I took the safety pass, ripped off my clothes, and chucked it in the water. I was so pissed. I was sick.
I remember that.
And those are the only 2 times I've ever had shown, poor sportsmanship, if you will. But I think that's probably the biggest thing is to remember that the sportsmanship aspect of sports. You see so many professional basketball players and football players, and I get it. It's part of the entertainment value. But I feel like it's not entertainment to some of these guys. I think it's really who they are to show poor sportsmanship, walking off the basketball court before the game's over and walking to the locker room. Like the big stars. I'm not going to name names, but you've seen it. Or football players doing the same thing. Or football players, they make that tackle and they're talking trash. Now, once again, there are aspects of sports that trash talk is a part of it, basketball being one of them, right? And on and off the court mentality those are two different things. I came from basketball background too. I trash talk, sure. Like in the gym, me and my buddies, I'm like, yo, Jay, you can't do that. Come on. Although I won't pick on Jay because Jay's too good. I can't pick on Jay. But I'll find somebody. I'm like, I'm not going to name names. My buddy Will, we work together. I'm like, Will, no shot right now. You get this first try. He's like, all right, Moravsky, let's, so we're up in each other's face trying to motivate each other. But it's different. When you see a professional athlete disrespecting people because it's what you do in the sport, I don't agree with that. It doesn't give a good look to the sport or the person, and it's not a good, not being a good role model for kids. So I just try to do that. I think in our sport, it is a little different. It is not one-on-one most of the time. It's you versus the course.
The other thing about your sport, and I don't know how many people know this, you don't get paid to go to these events. You're not getting paid. It's different when you reach a certain level, but in just the competition, it's not like in tennis or in some other sports, you're paid to show up. In tennis, if you get in the draw, you get paid. If you make a draw, it doesn't mean you're getting paid. You're paying your own travel expenses. You're doing a lot of things. If you get to the elite level, it's different. But there's so many American Ninja Warriors that have competed for longer than 10 years and haven't made any money. They've just put out money, and it's a passion. It's a love. It's a different kind of thing. So sometimes if they fall, that was the gas that was going to get them home if they made that next buzzer so it's a whole different familiarity of, when you look at the high paying careers in life, it's maybe a few at the top, and you've had to be at the top for like 10 years or a fan favorite to get to that level. So I didn't mean to interrupt or lengthen this. I just wanted to make sure audiences knew this is, don't go thinking you're going to make millions of dollars by starting to climb up a 80-foot rope in your backyard like you might have. And your thing. It's very different.
It's true. It is so much more than just climbing a rope. There's so many different things that you have to piece together. And even if you're physically strong enough, that's only 60% of what you need. You need the 40% of the mental fortitude. That's huge, to be able to handle the pressure. There's nothing scarier than stepping up to the starting line. We've had professional football players and other sports athletes come up and do our course. And I actually talked to one of them. He was a professional football player. And he said, Joe, I was more scared walking up to the starting line than I was in the Super Bowl. And I was like,
oh,
I believe it.
I get it, man.
That.
I know.
I mean, I saw it.
I believe
it.
They had open calls many years ago, maybe like 7 years ago. And I went to one in Arizona and they canceled it last minute. And everyone was like, are you allowed to do that? You run a foundation. What about if you fall? And I go, it's water. Where am I going to fall? I'll fall in the water. And so in a way, there was a little bit of relief that they canceled it because I knew I wasn't getting past the first one.
This was the American Ninja Warrior experience, right?
Yes, exactly.
I was so sad to hear that thing got canceled because I was actually in the middle of signing a contract with them to be a partner. And I was torn between them and another competing group that were doing the same thing. I had been with the other group longer. The sad thing is both of those ventures failed. But I think Ninja is going to make a comeback. The reality sports aspect of it is slowly dying, I think. But viewership is slowly just dwindling because people don't watch live or TV anymore. They're streaming and Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and blah, 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 blah. But it's a little different nowadays. The viewers are different, and everyone that watched me when I was younger, they're like 18 to 20 now or 22. And it's weird. Like I just saw somebody this weekend. They were like, Joe, you used to coach me. And I was like, what? I'm like, 20-year-old now. So it's weird, but
that's amazing.
And the great thing is too, you don't have to be that kind of American Ninja Warrior that's on TV, and your kids can compete in the juniors. You can go to the gym. You can find friends. You have a group party and start working out in the gym that way. It's cool. It's so check out Joe's gym and get out there and say hello, give him a high five and
do it.
Yeah, just do it. And thank you again, Joe. We certainly send hugs and blessings to you and your growing family. And
thank you.
Love seeing you and thanks for being on. We really appreciate it.
No problem. You guys are awesome. And I hope to see you guys soon. wherever we
Yes.
cross paths again.